Have you ever been in a room when the conversation turns to dating, the latest romantic drama, or the universal search for the one, and felt absolutely nothing? The volume of the culture is up. The commentators of your social circle are dissecting every detail, and there is a tension in the air, the kind that tells you something monumentally important is happening. Yet inside you, there is no spark, no pull, no sense of shared anticipation. There is just a quiet awareness that you are watching a spectacle meant for someone else. It is a strange moment because you aren't bored in the usual way. You understand what is happening. You know the rules of the game and who is winning or losing in the social hierarchy of romance. But emotionally, the signal simply doesn't land. It is like hearing a language you technically recognize, but you don't think in it. At first, this realization often comes with confusion. You might wonder if something is wrong with you. Why does everyone else seem so alive in this pursuit while you feel untouched? Most people never pause here. They either force themselves to care to fit in, or they quietly assume they are deficient. But this moment is worth slowing down. What if this isn't apathy? What if it's awareness? What if this is simply the instant you realize that the standard romantic script wasn't built for your nervous system, your attention, or the way you connect to meaning? That realization isn't a loss, it is the beginning of understanding how your mind actually works. In a culture like the United States, where being in a relationship functions as a primary, shared language, not speaking it can quietly mark you as different. When someone asks, "Why are you still single?" and your answer isn't a complaint but a shrug of neutrality, there is often a micro-silence. Assumptions start forming. You're antisocial, you're detached, you're broken, or you're just trying to be different on purpose. The lack of interest is interpreted as a lack of something essential, as if the hunger for a partner were a basic emotional requirement for belonging. What is rarely considered is that disinterest isn't rejection or emotional emptiness. It is simply a mismatch between what a culture treats as meaningful and what actually resonates with a particular mind. Psychologically, humans are uncomfortable with those who don't mirror their excitement. Neutrality often feels like judgment. So, we pathologize it. We turn a preference for solitude or non-romantic focus into a defect. Many people internalize this wrong story, believing something is missing in them, when in reality, nothing is broken. They aren't resisting connection. They are just not connecting here. To understand why the partnership model holds such a powerful grip on society, we have to look back into human prehistory. For most of our existence, survival depended on belonging to a tight-knit group. Your tribe, and by extension your immediate pair bond, determined whether you ate, whether you were defended, and whether you survived long enough to pass on your genes. Being accepted meant safety. Being excluded meant danger. The human brain evolved to take the threat of being alone very seriously. Modern romance plugs directly into that ancient wiring. It creates a socially sanctioned version of us versus the world. When a person finds a partner, the brain releases dopamine and oxytocin, chemicals associated with reward, security, and victory. When someone faces the prospect of being alone, stress hormones rise. This isn't metaphorical, it's physiological. The brain often doesn't distinguish between a symbolic lack of a partner and a literal threat to survival. Relationships are effective because they offer a safe, sanctioned way to activate the tribal brain. You get the belonging and the shared identity that our ancestors needed to survive. However, the tribal switch isn't broken in those who live without relationships. It simply doesn't flip as easily, or in the same situations. Everyone has a threshold for what activates their sense of belonging. For some, the traditional path, dating, marriage, family, is enough. For others, that threshold is higher. Loyalty and connection need to be earned through shared values, deep craft, or mutual creation, not inherited by social accident or cultural expectation. From this perspective, the pressure to find a teammate for life can feel strangely arbitrary. For some minds, the arrangement of traditional dating doesn't compute. Their nervous system pauses and asks, What exactly am I being asked to attach to here? When the answer doesn't feel real or reciprocal, the signal fades. This isn't cynicism, it's clarity. It means their tribal instinct is reserved for places where connection feels more stable and meaningful. Communities built around ideas, purpose, or a craft that doesn't reset with the end of a season or a breakup. When the tribal switch doesn't flip for romance, it's not indifference, it's discernment. For many, the choice to live without traditional relationships doesn't suddenly appear in adulthood. It forms quietly, long before anyone ever asks about your plans for a family. Our nervous systems are shaped early by what feels safe, regulating, and meaningful in the environments we grow up in. In some homes, constant togetherness and emotional merging are the primary rituals of bonding. For a child in that setting, a pair bond becomes synonymous with safety. But that isn't every childhood. Some grow up in environments where emotional proximity already meant tension. In those homes, the noise of another person's needs didn't signal celebration. It signaled a loss of autonomy or impending conflict. In these settings, the nervous system learns to stay alert, not to relax into collective intimacy. High levels of interpersonal stimulation don't feel like love, they feel like something to manage. Over time, the brain adapts. It begins to associate safety with focus, solitude, or one-on-one engagement that respects boundaries, rather than the intense emotional density of a romantic merger. This isn't avoidance, it is regulation. The nervous system is doing exactly what it learned to do to remain stable. There is also the matter of agency. Some learn early that emotional investment without control is risky. When outcomes are unpredictable, the brain becomes cautious about attaching itself to things it cannot influence. Watching your own happiness rise and fall based on the whims of a partner may never feel rewarding if your system prioritizes agency over the spectacle of romance. By the time adulthood arrives, the orientation is set, not because something went wrong, but because something adapted. The preference for internal depth over external display is the quiet imprint of a mind that knows what it needs to feel secure. Beyond the nervous system lies a more practical reality: capacity. Your brain has limited cognitive real estate. There is only so much space available for deep investment, the things you track, remember, and return to over time. Maintaining a serious relationship isn't passive. It requires a massive mental archive. It involves learning the rosters of another person's history, their shifting moods, their strategies for navigating the world, and the complex storylines of their life. For many, that archive is already full. Some minds allocate their attention early to systems instead of the social spectacle. They invest in mastery, building a craft, refining a skill, or understanding how ideas connect. Their attention doesn't scatter, it consolidates. From this angle, a lack of interest in romantic relationships isn't a failure to engage. It's a prior commitment. The passion slot in their mind is already occupied by a calculation: time spent navigating the emotional statistics of a partner versus time spent developing a personal capability. It is the choice between emotional energy tied to outcomes you can't influence and energy invested where effort compounds. Neither choice is morally superior, but they represent fundamentally different orientations. People who live without relationships haven't opted out of focus, they have concentrated it. Their minds are running long games, projects, pursuits, and systems that don't reset every season or end with a breakup. For them, the internal stadium isn't empty, it is simply hosting something else. The question was never, "Why don't you care?" but rather, "What did you care about instead?" This discernment is what others often mistake for indifference. When the tribal switch doesn't flip for a traditional relationship, it isn't because the person is cold. It is because their threshold for belonging is tied to something more reciprocal and stable. They reserve their tribal instinct for communities of shared purpose or intellectual craft, places where connection feels mutual and doesn't require the sacrifice of their hard-won autonomy. There's a reason why watching a romantic movie or witnessing a friend's proposal can feel almost physical for many people. Inside the human brain are cells called mirror neurons. These neurons activate not only when you perform an action yourself, but when you watch someone else perform it. When two people on screen finally embrace after a long-awaited arc, the spectator's reward circuits light up as if they were the one experiencing the embrace. On some level, the brain experiences the victory of connection as shared and borrowed. This is one of the primary engines behind the cultural obsession with romance. But mirror neurons do not fire indiscriminately. They require identification. To feel that surge, you have to see yourself in the person you are watching. You have to feel a psychological bridge that says, "That could be me," or "That represents me." Without that bridge, the simulation weakens, and the emotional payoff never arrives. For those who live without relationships, the system isn't broken. It simply attaches elsewhere. Their mirror neurons might light up watching a master craftsman shape raw material, a developer solve a complex logic puzzle, or a thinker articulate a profound truth with clarity. The neurological surge is the same, but the target is different. The difference isn't emotional capacity, it is chosen heroes. Beneath the polite nodding and small talk at social gatherings, however, there is a layer most people never admit to carrying: a quiet shame. It shows up when you are asked once again about your personal life, and you know your honest answer, that you are perfectly content alone, will create a distance. So you soften it. You say you're focusing on your career, or haven't met the right person yet, instead of the truth: "It didn't move me at all." Over time, these moments accumulate, making you feel slightly misaligned with the room, as if you're half a step out of sync with what everyone else finds vital. Because humans are social learners, your brain starts searching for the problem, asking why it seems so easy for everyone else. In a culture that treats romantic enthusiasm as proof of normalcy, neutrality can feel like a flaw. But shame thrives on misattribution. What is actually happening isn't emotional deficiency, it is a mismatch. Your nervous system and your attention simply aren't designed to light up on command for a collective romantic spectacle. Shame comes from comparing your internal truth to an external expectation, and once that distinction becomes clear, the weight begins to lift. You are not failing to participate in life. You are participating differently. For many, a relationship serves as a sanctioned pause from the world, a state of absorption where the outside world fades and attention narrows to something simple and shared. Psychologically, this is not unlike meditation. But absorption is not exclusive to the presence of another person. Those who live without relationships aren't immune to the need for escape. They just find it through different doors. They find it in the workshop where hours pass unnoticed, in the studio where hands move before thoughts catch up, or in the deep focus of coding and building. The difference isn't escape versus engagement, but the direction of the energy. A romantic narrative often absorbs attention outward, into someone else's needs, moods, and outcomes. Other forms of absorption pull attention inward, into creation, problem-solving, or personal refinement. One consumes a shared narrative, the other lives inside an unfolding, individual one. Neither path is superior, as they regulate different nervous systems in different ways. What matters is the effect, the sense of presence and the temporary relief from self-consciousness. When you look at the whole picture, a quiet truth begins to settle in. People who do not obsess over finding a partner are not standing outside of life, watching it pass by. They are participating, just not in the most visible or traditionally celebrated way. While others invest their attention in shared romantic spectacles, these individuals invested in slow, personal arenas that don't come with crowds or commentary. Their silence regarding romance isn't emptiness, it is concentration. It is a mind turned toward something it is building or trying to understand, something that won't be reset by a breakup or a change in season. Attention is the most valuable resource you have, and where you point it shapes the person you become. Some point it toward building a life around a partner. Others point it toward creating something that didn't exist before. That difference doesn't make one path better, but it explains why the signal never needed to land. If you have felt this quiet pattern of the mind, you are not alone. You aren't missing a fundamental instinct. You have simply chosen a form of absorption that leaves something behind when the moment ends.